Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark TV. You guys know who I am. I'm Dr. Angela Butts-Chester, and you know what I like to do on the show. Say it with me. I want to enlighten, inspire, and empower you to become your best self. Now, scripture reminds us that the tongue is a small thing that makes grand speeches, but a tiny spark can set a great forest on a fire. And that's what we want to do today. We want to get you fired up about my guest. I'll be spending time today with Father Ronald Ramson, and we'll be talking about his book, Put Your Hands into Hers, Mary, Our Life, Our Sweetness, and Our Hope. So go on, get comfy, get cozy, get your coffee or get your tea, because we are about to get started. Hello, Reverend Ramson. How are you? Thank you so much for joining me here on Daily Spark TV.
Oh, thank you so much, Dr. Angela. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. I am really excited to talk to you about your book, but we do have a little bit of a tradition around here, and that is we realize that every viewer may not be familiar with you or your work. So first question for you is, tell us a little bit about yourself. What makes you you?
Well, I was born and raised in Chicago, and I went to the seminary when I was a young kid, prep seminary, down in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. I went to Perryville, Missouri, where I live now, and I was ordained a priest. And believe it or not, my anniversary is this Friday. 65 years as a priest. And I've done everything imaginable, including working in Kenya. I love Kenya. Anyway, I've done everything. And I've thoroughly enjoyed my vocation.
Oh, absolutely. And congratulations, early congratulations on that anniversary. That is so awesome. But it's really easy to do what God has called you to do when you love your vocation. Time
Right.
passes by so quickly. So I can imagine. Now, being an author, is that something that you've always wanted to do? Or did you find that this was simply another way to share your message with the masses?
Well, I started writing. I think I've written a lot, articles mostly in various magazines and newspapers and whatnot. In fact, I just started writing an article joining the Ministerial Alliance here for the local paper. I write every so often, and I've written books. And anyway, it just came to me. I guess I felt the need to do it. I wanted to reach out to people and tell them about the Lord and hope,
Absolutely. I find that many of the authors that I've been blessed to interview, the majority, and when I say the majority, I am talking at least 95% of them said, a writer? Oh, heavens no. This was not on my to-do list. But
yeah.
now that I've written, oh, the joy that it brings, and so glad that they stepped out in faith on that. So I can understand that.
Yeah.
Now, the title of your book, Put Your Hands into Hers, Mary, Our Life, Our Sweetness, and Our Hope. How did you come about that title? Did it come to you first? Did it develop out of the writings? What's the story there?
Okay. I had a book, not this book, another book that I wanted to get published. I talked to a guy, an editor up in New York, and he said, I can't do it. He said, Father Ramson, I want you to do me a favor. I said, what do you want me to do? He said, I want you to write a book on Mary, because this is during the pandemic. He said, I want you to write a book, 125 pages. I said, really? I'm Mary. I never intended to write one on the mother of Jesus. I said, wow. And I said, what am I going to write about? So I hung up the phone, and I guess literally, Dr. Angela, I started getting all these ideas. And I think what I wanted to do, I wanted to show Mary's femininity and her humanity. And I found this out in the apparitions, or Marian apparitions, especially. She's all woman. She's all woman, you know? But because some of the married people I've dealt with said, we can't identify with her because we put Mary up on a pedestal. And we can't get up there. You know what I mean? So I said, okay, let's take her all down from the pedestal. That's what I'm trying to do. And
Oh, I love that. I love that idea, because it does make her more relatable, or it helps you understand, kind of woman to woman, what was going on. And I think many women try to do that and understand. Can you imagine you're in labor and you don't have anywhere to go? Oh, the stress, the anxiety, or that moment of the day that Christ is crucified. Oh, your mother's heart. You try to relate, but you're right. So many times we only see her in the pedestal position and not in the day-to-day position of the mother. I'm so glad that you did that. Now, would you say that your book is appropriate for someone as young as high school, or do they need to be college age or have a little bit more life experience to be able to follow along?
I would think high school kids could benefit from it from high school up, I would think.
Hmm.
I
Now,
Yeah.
do they need to be seasoned in their faith, so to speak? Do they need to have been brought up in the church to be able to follow along, or can a new believer also follow your story?
I think a new believer could do it, could follow it. And because I've done my pieces are real short. They're short, they're doable. You know what I mean? You can sit down. Some people say they like that. Usually all my things I write are short, and people like that. And as being in the industry, people don't like long things. They like short things. I don't know how many, Angela, I don't know how many videos I made here for the Association of Writers Medal. They want anything about 4 to 5 minutes, you know?
That is very true. That is very true. People want short videos. Folks want shorter sermons. Folks want shorter life application. It does not matter. I have to agree with you. It seems as though the attention span of the general populace has gotten shorter. So we do have to be very mindful of that. And I'm glad that you were aware of that and made it so that even our young people would have an interest, or at least the ability to be able to read it and it not be too long. Very, very smart on your end. Now, speaking of reading the book, I firmly believe that authors present their work in a way that it should be consumed, meaning section one before section two, chapter one before chapter two. With your book, does that matter how we read it, or can the reader simply pick up the book and start anywhere?
You can start anywhere. Something that hits your fancy. You're writing, look at the index. Oh, I like that. I like that title. I like that subject. I want to read that, you know, and that's the way I've done it. That's pretty much, as I said, the way I write everything.
But that is so incredibly helpful. And again, I'm thinking of our younger readers, our younger audience,
Yeah.
when you are able to pick it up and, like you said, look and say, "Oh, chapter two sounds really good. Let me start there." then eventually they will get around to reading the whole book. So I think that's very smart of you, especially for some of our younger readers. Now, when you were in the process of writing the book, and with your wisdom, with your knowledge, with having been a seasoned minister, a seasoned priest, you have such a wealth of knowledge to include for Mary. How did you decide which bits and pieces, so to speak, you would include in the book? How did you make that determination without overwhelming the reader?
Well, it's funny because I got them, I had the mandate about 100, 125 pages. And some subject will pop in my head. And I said, is this Mary or is this the Holy Spirit? I couldn't differentiate, which one? And then I got to 125, kept on going. I got to 152 or so. I said, Mary, stop. Don't give me any more ideas. I don't want any more ideas. Yeah, and, 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 and right now in my room, I have enough for another book on Mary, but I'm not going to do it. But anyway, it's I just was flooded with these ideas. I never had these big ideas before. I
I
wanted to make
love that.
I wanted to make it. We were at a time with the pandemic. We needed hope. We needed inspiration, and I was trying to get across. She is our hope. She is our inspiration. The mother of Jesus. He gave us his mom from at the cross. And it's amazing.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yes, I definitely understand. And as a mother of a son, it especially hits hard during the Easter season. And as you know, many people watch the Passions of the Christ, every year. And we are reminded of the emotional roller coaster that Mary had to be on. It's one thing to know something and to understand that you have been chosen for such a time, but it had to have been a grueling experience, not only just to witness a crucifixion, but to witness one of your own son. So absolutely, she is such an inspiration, and I think that we do need to kind of wrap back around and pay more attention to the lessons that she teaches us along the way as well. I couldn't agree with you more. Well, Father Ramson, it is time for us to take a very short break. But before we do, can you remind everyone what is the title of your book? And if someone wants to reach out to you, how should they do that?
Well, but the title of my book is Mary, Our Life, Our Sweetness, and Our Hope. And they can get me at my email if they want. F as in Frank, Ramson, Ramson, at gmail.com. That's simple.
I love it. Alrighty, everyone. Now you know where you can get a copy of the book. We'll be back right after this.
Hi, do you have something to share? Be a guest. Want to sponsor an episode? Visit drangela.chester.com. Thanks again for watching Daily Spark TV.
And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark TV. Now, Father Ramson, I want to ask this question of you, and that is, when you were in the process of writing, not only did you have to determine which pieces you were going to share with us about Mary, but you also had to think of it from the perspective of the reader and what lesson you wanted to share with them so that I like to call that picking up nuggets along the way. With that being said, how did you determine what nuggets of wisdom you were going to include in the book? What do you want the reader to make sure they understand having read your book?
Well, I took it slow. And I took it slow, and as things came to my mind, I went, well, that's a good subject. I think people will be interested in that. And then I go, no, that's a good subject. That's big. It's applicable to their own spiritual life. Something that would touch their hearts, And I go, and then I write another piece, then another piece. It was a slow process, and I wasn't in any hurry. And but I didn't have any real plan. I didn't sit down in the beginning and write out a plan for the whole book. I took it as it came along to me, and something that I thought would be appealing to everyone, about her. And not only what they did know probably, but things they didn't know about her, Mary, as much as the things that we can know about her, I think so. And and may I tell you one little story, real quick?
Yes, please.
We have a gift shop here on the grounds where I live, and they have a couple of my books. And I was called one Sunday to come over there. So I went over there, and there were two women there. And I walked in there, and I remember she was from Memphis. And she said, I read your book. I said, okay. She said, you didn't write a book, you wrote a love story, didn't you? And I went, wow, she got it. And that's what happened. Angela, I started to write a book. I ended up writing a love story. So I talk about her. When I talk about, I said, this is my girlfriend. I'm talking about and people look at me like, hello. It's like, I said, really? But she's come to life for me.
I love that you had that experience. For me, a similar understanding is the way that John writes about Jesus, that he so has an affinity for the divine part of Christ, that he cannot help but kind of ooze about him at times. It's the same way that for me, when I understand how King David is writing, when we go through the book of Psalms, in that even in times of trouble, he knows, like, you are so listening to me, and God, you will so take care of me. But then those times of joy and adulation that he has, and the way that I read him saying, surely this will be, and I go, oh my goodness. If you can't tell, those are two of my favorite people as well. So it is just really understanding and getting in there and reading it for what it is. And you're right, you cannot help but share your adoration for that person, not making them more than what they are, not making them less than what they are, but just understanding that there are these wonderful qualities about Mary. I'm so glad that you did that. Now, when it comes to understanding how this book should affect the reader, I want to kind of ask the flip side of the question and ask, in your writing this, how did it affect you? I'm going to pause you for a second and just put my disclaimer. You guys know what I'm going to say, viewers. If you want to know how the story ends, you've got to buy the book. So if you want to know all of it, you have to buy the book. But with that being said, when you were writing, how did the writing process affect you, and how do you think it's going to affect the reader?
Well, as a priest, I've known Mary since I was a kid in Chicago, growing up. And as we know in philosophy, knowledge comes first, then love. And I start getting known and more and more. And the more I got to know, the more I started to love her. And especially in these apparitions that I wrote about, not exclusively, of course, but the more I wrote, the more she came alive for me. You know, she became. Every morning I wake up, Angela. Every morning I wake up, and I have two pictures on my wall of Mary. One is an icon, which is the most famous icon in the world. It's in the Ukraine. And actually, the Russians have it now under bulletproof glass in Moscow. And it's called the Mother of Tenderness. And I wake up and see that. I go, good morning, Ima. I call it, it's in Aramaic. And then I have another picture of her, beautiful lady. I go, good morning, beautiful lady. Because in the apparitions, a lot of them, they didn't know who she was. They said, beautiful lady. And the amazing thing about her was, I found out that when in these apparitions, she progressively got more beautiful at times. I went, how does that happen? You know, I mean, wouldn't any woman love to have that happen, right? I mean, how do you progressively get more beautiful? Oh my goodness sake. Anyway, I touched, she just became, like I said before, she became my girlfriend.
I love that. I love that. And as you were sharing that, it makes sense to me in that now that I am a woman of a certain age. When I was younger, I perhaps wouldn't have understood that statement or understand when our parents or grandparents would say, "Oh, this is my bride and she's as beautiful as the day I met her." And many young people are going, "But grandmother is 80, grandmother's 90. What do you mean? She doesn't look the same." But now that I have matured and I have grown, I too now understand that it is not simply about the physicality. A person can be physically attractive or beautiful, but their spirit is what just makes them absolutely beaming. And it really and truly is true and correct. There are so many people that are that much more beautiful because they have such a wonderful spirit about themselves. So you're right. I can definitely understand how that happened. Now let me ask you, along that same vein, and you touched on this earlier, is that you wanted to make sure that you talked about Mary's femininity and how uh, and her humanity and how we should understand that. Can you touch on that just a little bit more? How did you go about doing that in your book?
Well, I tried to touch on the subject. I said, her humanity or femininity. And it hit me in the apparitions. She never wears the same outfit twice. I said, and women go, wow. As a woman, go, I don't like to wear, now that's femininity. And she, I said to her one day, I said, you don't like to wear shoes, do you? So, because most of the things, and she never has shoes. She became barefoot. And as part of it from Genesis 3:15, when she crushes the head of Satan, of this snake. And I said, but the other thing I found out is she loves yellow or gold roses. And in a lot of the apparitions, believe it or not, she has a gold rose or a yellow rose and each foot and the toes of each foot. And I said, that's femininity. you like roses. Yeah, but then it dawned on me. I said, you're telling us who you are and where you're from, because you're the handmaid of the Lord. You say that to arch and the angel Gabriel. I am the handmaid of the Lord. But then I said, oh, flower. She's from Nazareth. The root word for Nazareth is flower. So she's telling us in these apparitions who she is and where she's from. You know, and stuff. That's the stuff I started learning, and I was trying to get that across to people. Things the ordinary people wouldn't think about. When I go to our church and I see a statue there, I said, look at her. She has no shoes, but she's dressed like in the nines. Beautiful, you know. Well, I go, hello. So like, you look at Lourdes, you look at Fatima, you look at Our Lady of Guadalupe, goes on and on and on. They're all different. It never works the same. Anyway, so that's femininity. That's humanity. I used to think about, I wonder if there's a bunch of angels up in heaven that are in charge of our wardrobe. I mean, I said, low. In showbiz, you have people take care of their stuff, right? I said, my mom, incidentally, Angela, my mom used to be a dancer in showbiz.
So you know about the costume changes and how much women love their wardrobe, love their how they're able to express themselves in fashion. So now, before I let you go, though, could you remind everyone one last time, what is the title of this book? And if someone wants to reach out to you, what's the best way to do that?
Well, Mary, our life, our sweetness, and our hope. And my email is Ramson, @gmail.com. That's the fastest way.
I love it. Thank you again, Father Ramson, for being a guest on Daily Spark TV today.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Angela. God bless you. Thank you so much for having me on. I totally enjoyed this.
Thank you for being on. And viewers, thank you for spending some time with us here today as well. I hope that we have once again enlightened, inspired, and empowered you. As always, may the Lord continue to shine his face upon you. May you receive his grace and his mercy in all that you do. Until next time, everyone, remember that you are blessed in the Lord. Have a great day, everyone.